Why is it important for young professionals, pipeline industry? I think the answer to that might be that, in fact, it's more than just pipelines, and the responsibility is actually to become a lot more energy literate around the entire industry. So it's important for young professionals, I think, to understand how energy impacts all aspects of the Canadian economy, particularly here in Alberta, particularly here around Edmonton. So it's about energy literacy, not particularly just about pipeline understanding. Pipelines are important, but so is everything associated with how energy industry supports the Canadian economy, the Alberta economy, and it impacts everybody here in Edmonton.
The one thing that I've found in the past 20 years that in my own oil and gas field experience is that Canadians sometimes have not understood the facts and some of the misrepresented facts about the benefits of pipelines to the Canadian economy. I believe that we should be educating not only our young professionals, but it has to start at a very early age at our children, that when we become young professionals, we're aware of the benefits, but also the environmental concerns that pipelines bring. There's many benefits, but the one thing I have seen over the last 20 years is the improvement in the environmental footprint from the oil and gas industry in terms of preserving our air, our water, and our land. And I think Canada and our province, Alberta, has to be very proud of our environmental record, and I think that's the one thing Canadians and young professionals need to make sure that they fully understand going forward. The benefits versus the challenges and risks associated with pipelines within Canada.
This is a fulcrum point around which the country will unfold, really. Based on the kinds of decisions that are made around pipelines, we'll either be moving towards a more energy-intensive future, or we'll be moving to other kinds of futures. And young professionals and their children and their families will be the ones living with the fallout of that, so they need to be in a place to be informed, to be able to adapt to the coming changes, and to inform those decisions as they're happening.
Because pipelines bring a lot of potential disasters with them, from the threat of spills to ruptures, which of course can endanger the environment, to human communities, to the industries that they're connected to. One of the big things we're working on is trying to stop tar sands pipelines, because they would accelerate the growth of the tar sands industry here in Alberta, which would lead to rampant greenhouse gas emissions. And one of the biggest issues that I think all young people need to be concerned about is climate change, and more importantly is how to address it. And building new pipelines or new pipeline infrastructure is definitely sending us in the wrong direction and logging us into an industry that we need to start transitioning away from.
It's critically important for young professionals, just like it is for all Canadians, to understand these issues and be informed about them. This is the future, not just of our economy. It speaks to our environment. It speaks to the kind of economy we're going to develop. And I think young people across the country, especially young professionals, are going to have to learn how to interact and engage with that economy. And a big part of that will be understanding how our natural resources are exported, how they're developed, how they feed into the economy, how they impact the environment. It's difficult to be productive in a country if you don't have that understanding of one of the main driving forces of the economy. That's why I would say that it's critically important to have knowledge of issues around pipelines, and not just pipelines, but natural resources as a whole, and the environment. They're becoming increasingly important to Canada in terms of their contribution to GDP, their contribution to jobs, and the more important they become, the more important it is for us to understand the dynamics at play there.
As we take a look at young professionals and give consideration to them being the future leaders of industry, of society, of all of the various aspects that are going to keep Canada's society rich, it's extremely important that they're well informed, that they understand the issues that lie before us, and especially, you know, what a viable industry this is, what an important part it plays in Canada's society. It's building to the future, it's safe, and I'm very pleased to be able to engage in the dialogue that's going to take place here this evening.
I think it's important that we're talking about this issue, not necessarily pipeline specifically, but as it pertains to the broader energy question in Canada. The development of energy, how we're going to supply energy to the world, and particularly in the context of climate change, is really going to be one of the defining issues of our generation. And so I think it's going to define a big part of the Alberta economy in the future and a big part of the Canadian economy in the future. And I think understanding how the big pieces fit together is going to be important for young people as they're looking where they want to go in their career and how they want to advance their career and what opportunities are going to be out there as they move through their professional career.
The young people are the ones who are going to have to live with the consequences of the decisions we make today. It's their world. Some of us are just still living in it. Energy is the issue of our time. It's unfortunate that we've been unable so far to have a proper debate about the issue. There's been a lot of talk, but it's an issue that generates a lot of heat but not a whole lot of light on either side. So hopefully we can change that.